otherwise known as Super Sexy.
Super Sexy here with my Super Nintendo platformer game collection. First up, Western developed Plock. This was done by Sculptured Software, who did a bunch of work in the 16-bit era for Genesis and Super Nintendo. Most people will probably know them for doing MK1 and MK2 on Super Nintendo. MK2, really good port. Yeah, Plock. From what I played, great music, solid visuals. Need to play it more, but it has potential in it. Yeah, mechanically sound. Next up, Japanese developed from a really good, apparently really good third party, Hudson Soft, Inspector Gadget. I got this game because I'm nostalgic for the property, the IP, Inspector Gadget. The game itself is disappointing. Visually, nothing to write home about. And as far as, fun factor, no point was I having fun playing this. It's not broken or anything, it's just not a very good game. The Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse by Capcom. This is a very solid game. Visually, mechanically, its sound, the one drawback, especially for a traditional platform like this, which I don't get, is there's a good amount of slowdown and performance issues. Yeah, like I said, considering it's just a traditional platformer, it's disappointing, but other than that, it's a well done game. Aladdin on Super Nintendo. Most people have an attachment to the Genesis version because it was a huge deal with its graphics in 1993. The Super Nintendo version, to me, is a really good game. It does suffer from some performance issues as far as slowdown, but graphics, production values, music, all the gameplay mechanics are tight. And yeah, a completely different game than the Genesis one. And I slightly prefer the Genesis one, but I mean, I can see people preferring the Super Nintendo one if they give them an equal shot. Jungle Book. This is a disappointing game on the Super Nintendo. On the Genesis, it is actually a really underrated, solid, fun game, mechanically sound. On Super Nintendo, you get the visuals, and the sound is pretty solid, but the gameplay is a mess. It's hard. The collision detection's off. The hit detection's a little off. So you get just a frustrating, kind of broken experience. Still give it a try. I mean, it does a decent job, like I said, or more than a decent job with the graphics and sound. Adventure Island from Hudson Soft, as I blasted them over Inspector Gadget. Adventure Island, I first played the NES Adventure Island, so I do like the series. This is a solid update for this 16-bit generation. Soundtrack is awesome, graphics are awesome, gameplay solid. I need to play more of it, but from what I've played, a really good game. Next up, Super Mario World. Super Mario World. Yeah, I got Super Mario World when I was a little kid in 1995 when I first got my Super Nintendo with Donkey Kong. It was fun when I first played it, it's still fun now. Definitely will never like Mario games like I do Sonic games. They're just kind of never get out of first gear. They're slower paced and they're extremely long. The level designs I don't like as much, but yeah, I mean, from a mechanical standpoint, controls are there, tons of content, there's world maps and save features. Yeah, I don't like this game as much as, most people do, but it's certainly not a bad game. It's a good game. It's exactly what it is, a good game. Super Mario All-Stars, which is the NES originals remade, updated graphics and sound. I grew up with Mario 1 or Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 3, so yeah, like I said, Mario games are generally all well done. This is a good game. Tons of content. Yes, I like faster paced platformers more, but completely well done game across the board, or games in this case. Next up, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. This is actually technically a very impressive game. I think it uses the Super FX2 chip, so you do get some really cool effects. The art style and graphics are, like I said, are really impressive. I'm not a huge fan of them, though, just a preference thing. Not a huge fan of Baby Mario. Once again, probably a preference thing. Like all Mario games, it's, you know, deep in the gameplay, tons of content and levels and secrets and stuff. So if that's your cup of tea, then I mean, this is a legitimate great game. If you're like me and you want more faster paced and you tire of kind of long games, then I'll pick it up and play a few levels every now and then, and I turn the system off. The reason I got a Super Nintendo as a kid, Donkey Kong Country. I remember playing this at a Toys R Us kiosk and just being blown away by the graphics, like most kids were. When I actually got to have it at home, you know, the appeal of the graphics wore off pretty quick, and then you're just left to judge it on its own merits as a game. And I actually recently replayed through all 3 Donkey Kongs, so it's a solid game. I don't consider it anything near an elite platformer, but it's not bad. Like I said, from production value standpoint, this game is insanely good. Music, graphics, even though pre-rendered graphics haven't aged that well, they're just insane. So yeah, there's tons of content in this game too, but it doesn't do anything special as far as gameplay goes. Donkey Kong 2. This is a game I never gave a chance as a kid because I was over Donkey Kong. You know, by the time, you know, I was finished Donkey Kong 1, I was like over the hype, and I remember this coming out and me just not caring at all. I recently played this start to finish, and actually this is a legit step up in every way compared to the first one. Even though Donkey Kong's not playable in this and it's Dixie Kong, I mean, like I said, pre-rendered graphics haven't aged all that great, but Donkey Kong 2, I mean, it's still a really good looking game, and the music for the most part in this game is insane, like next level. Like, I like the Sega Genesis sound chip, but I mean, the Genesis cannot pull off the music that was in this game, to me at least. I don't think it could. Yeah, DK2, I think it improved, like I said, in every way. Gameplay, still, I think this is a borderline elite type game, but I still prefer faster paced platformers. Lastly, Donkey Kong 3, like DK1 and 2, I recently played through this. Yeah, it has the bones there to be a really solid platformer. It is. I'm not a huge fan of whatever the hell he's called, Baby Kong or whatever. Some of the art style is to me, even though it's visually impressive in a lot of ways, it's just not all that interesting. So yeah, I mean, it's still a good game, but to me, the atmosphere and the music and some of the gameplay is a step down from number 2, which is somewhat to be expected because it was right at the tail end of Super Nintendo being supported, so some of the Rare's talent was probably being used in other places. So that's my collection.